Welcome to the weird and the wonderful with strange bones. That's me. And I promised you guys that today we would do an interesting one. So, let's get things going. And as we do that, I do remind you all that we allow all sorts of comments. We allow agreement, disagreement, and all the rest of it. But we have one rule, and the rule is you have to be polite, or we will give you the boot. But besides that, we are going to be talking today about aliens. And while I do have another interesting country and culture lined up for you guys, we are going to start off with something a little bit different. So welcome to you who have joined in. It's good to have you along. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and all the good things so that we can keep the channel going. We rely on you for our continuation. But yes, I promised you an interesting story to begin with today, and I do believe that I can fulfill that little promise as well. And we are going to be talking about something perhaps you might not have thought, but believe it or not, I have met an alien. Now, this is quite a longish story as to how it came about, and it was a very, very interesting one, and I will very much want to hear from you your opinions on the whole thereof and what you think about it, because it has within it a couple of mysteries that I have never been able to quite explain. So let's get going. Now, this story, though we have already done our little overview on South Africa's UFOs, we only very briefly touched on one which deserves a great deal more information. And so we're going to tackle that today. And this is the story that, if you're quite severely into your UFOs, you may have actually heard of. It is the story of Elizabeth Clara, a very interesting individual, which I was fortunate enough to meet. This was quite a few years ago, I will admit, but it left an impression for a number of reasons. So let us begin with the story. She was born in Mooi River in Natal, not terribly far from where I am now, and quite a few years back, I used to live and work in Pietermaritzburg, so not a terrible distance away. Now, according to her autobiography, at the age of 7, she and her older sister had their first alien encounter outside of their parents' farmhouse in the Natal Midlands. Clara claimed that they witnessed a plummeting, pockmarked meteor, which was intercepted by a silvery disk bathed in a pearly luster. Now, what exactly it might have been, of course, is a fair question. But this is what she said. Now, she matriculated from St. Anne's Diocesan College in Pietermaritzburg, and she moved to Florence, Italy, to study art and music, but thereafter completed a 4-year diploma in meteorology at Cambridge University and learned to fly light aircraft. So she was a well-educated and apparently quite intelligent woman. And I can tell you that she thereafter at least visited back um, to KZN on more than one occasion. Now, Clara recalls in her autobiography that she had been receiving occasional telepathic messages from a friendly space alien named Akon since childhood. Akon was presumably unrelated to um, other aliens that seemed to have been popular at the time, nevertheless. Now, what's interesting is she was very, very specific in her observations, which we will get to as we go along because they become important. She was able to take photos of the alien spaceship from the Drakensberg Mountains on July 17, 1955, which have been published and do indeed show at least some kind of silvery disk, whatever it might be. Now, she did a number of sketches and things as well of what these aliens look like, but she said that she managed to call down Akon and his scout ship on April 7th in 1956 for an actual landing. Thereafter, she was carried up to the mothership in Earth's orbit, and now the story comes a little bit interesting from the normal stories that were going around. Hey, George, thank you so much for the likes. I do appreciate. So she was transported in 1957 to Akon's home planet of Meton. Now, Meton is a genuine planet, and it is to be found in the star system of Alpha Centauri. Now, this planet does exist. It is real. We know very little about it simply because it is so far away. But she says she went there. She had, shall we call them, personal relations with Akon, and she became pregnant. Eventually delivered a male child, her son Ailing, who stayed behind on Meton to be educated while Clara came home. The whole process, the trip, the lovemaking, the pregnancy, the delivery, and the return trip, required apparently less than 4 months to achieve the entirety thereof, which is quite impressive if you think about it. Now, in 1980, she published a book called Beyond the Light Barrier, which was in fact eventually made into a movie as well, I believe, about her extraterrestrial adventures. And on his world lecture tour in the late 1950s, George Adamski, who also claimed that he had been um, abducted at one point, made a point of visiting South Africa and looking up Clara to talk about their experiences with the friendly and wise Space Brothers. But by that time, Clara was not the only follower of Adamski to experience so-called claimed space motherhood. Now, sadly, Elizabeth died at the age of 84 from uh, breast cancer, leaving her second book, The Gravity File, unfinished, which would have filled in the gaps of the first, besides explaining how the electrogravity propulsion technology that Akon's ship used worked, which I got to admit, I would have liked to have known that. Now, going on from there, we can say that in the actual book, she not only mentions where the ship landed, she spoke a fair bit more about the interactions, shall we say, with Akon and his people, including how they spoke on peace, love, understanding, and environmentalism, which I suppose is superior wisdom of an advanced and utopian civilization. She also, however, for what it is worth, was something of a conspiracy theorist and basically claimed that there's an international cover-up that keeps vital information from the public. Governments don't want us to know about these nice aliens out there. So she was threatened, they say, in case she revealed details about alien technology. Now, who really was she? She was the youngest daughter of Samuel Bancroft Woolleyat and Florence Woolleyat. He was a pioneering veterinary surgeon who eventually settled at Conington Farm near Rosetta, which is quite important, where he became a successful shorthorn farmer and a very dedicated polo player. And if you know anything about this area, you know that means quite a great deal. It's a big deal, and it would make you fairly well known and important in the society. So the very first view that they had of the aliens was only a seeing of it in the sky, shall we say. It was not direct contact initially. You had the giant orange-red cratered planetoid that was some kind of a mothership, which was orbiting and rotating high in the atmosphere, and then the disks came out of it to descend to Earth. She had a second sighting a few months after the first, along with one of their Zulu farm managers, and he apparently spoke of the sighting in terms of Zulu mythology, which is not recorded in the main thing. Now, she was pretty well educated, could fly small planes, etc. Um, Apparently did get married and was part of the RAF in World War II. Um, and according to what was written, she and her husband did see a saucer together as well, which may or may not mean anything. So she was a married woman, um, to a normal human being type person. She was a believer in telepathy, and since her youth did try to enhance her psychic skills. Now, the place that we are most interested in was Flying Saucer Hill. Now, in 1954, Clara's sister May was then residing on the farm Whiteleaf in the Natal Midlands, and relayed to her that the local Zulus were reporting appearances of a lightning bird in the sky. In the response to this, Elizabeth and her children travelled from Johannesburg to the farm, and she ascended Flying Saucer Hill the following day, 27th of December, and she claimed to have seen the starship then descend. It hovered 3 meters above the ground, emitting only a soft hum, its hull spinning, though the central dome remained stationary. The spaceman, who later identified himself as Akon, was clearly visible through one of the 3 portholes, but a barrier of heat that emanated from the ship prevented her from approaching, and thereafter his ship flew away again. Now, she came back to the same hilltop after further reports of the so-called lightning bird, and this time Akon took her aboard his scout ship, which was a craft about 60 feet or 18 meters in diameter. There was a second pilot, shorter and darker skinned than Akon, who was supposedly a botanist and astrophysicist. She was shown a lens that offered views through the craft floor. The machine only made a hum with no sense of movement, but they were transported to the enormous cigar-shaped mothership that had a garden-like interior. After meeting the inhabitants, she was returned to the hilltop. Now, during the encounter, there were kisses exchanged, and Akon revealed that Elizabeth was a reincarnated Venusian and long-lost soulmate. He further explained that they occasionally took Earth women as partners, as the offspring strengthened their race with an infusion of new blood, and quite a number of Venusians were surreptitiously living among human beings. Now, right there, that gives us a great start in the strange and mysterious, as it were. Now, of course, this went on as they developed their relationships. And around this sort of time, various observers noted a steady red glow poised at a rocky section of the hill that remained there for quite some time, but there was no sign of fire found afterwards. Now, I bid you take note of the rocky section of hill. It will come up and be important a little later. Now, in 1956, July, after their family farm was sold, Clara revisited the area and claimed to have taken a series of 7 photos of Akon's scout ship using a simple brownie box camera. She claimed that vivid light flashes turned into a dull grey craft enveloped in a shimmering heat haze, and that for an hour the disk darted silently over a rise near the farmhouse, making several weaving detours, and shone like silver in the bright sunlight before streaking out of sight. Edgar Sievers, a ufologist from Pretoria, said the Clara family saw her leave the homestead alone and suggested that the frail Elizabeth would have found it difficult to throw a car hubcap and photograph it at the same time. He also stated that no type of hubcap or similar type source of thing was found around that would explain at least the disk in the air. And for those of you who didn't know, it was a popular way to fake a UFO by taking something like a car's hubcap and flinging it into the air and then photographing it so that it appeared you had a flying saucer. Now, they claimed it wouldn't be possible for her to have done that. Now, in 1958, a series of contacts reportedly started that set things apart from the usual standard. Her visits with Akon had day-long rendezvous now on the high plateau of Kaskin Peak in the Drakensberg, and that he presented her with a silver ring that enhanced their telepathic connection. And it was at this time that they consummated their love, and the child was conceived. And after a terrestrial pregnancy, she and her MG car were transported in 1959 to Akon's home planet of Meton, which orbits the Proxima Centauri in the star system of Alpha Centauri. She delivered a son who was given the name Ailing, and he stayed there to be educated properly. But now, unfortunately, it seemed that Meton's planetary vibrations affected Elizabeth's heart, and she was not allowed to return, but she got follow-up visits from Akon and Ailing. Now, time differences seem to work a little different, shall we call it, if you're out in space like that. So maybe that means something, maybe it doesn't. I cannot claim I have ever been to space, and therefore don't know how that might work. Maybe if there is an astrophysicist amongst us, they can give us an answer there. Nevertheless, they do say that the homes are scattered on Meton in park-like grounds with an abundance of all things needed for civilization and an unlimited energy to tap into from the atmosphere and the universe. And it seems they were quite hippie in the way she describes life on Meton. So it does seem a bit rather idyllic. Now, eventually she returned from Natal to Johannesburg and worked, amusingly enough, at the local CNA, which I don't think exists anymore. It did back in the day. It was the bookstore, but I think nowadays it does not exist. But nevertheless, and her outlandish claims, of course, made her something of a darling with the press, who loved to ridicule her. But she never seemed to mind. And her message from Akon to humanity was her whole worry, as it were, her life task, which she then went hard at. So she put up with any kind of um, ridicule to be able to get the message out, if you would. And this eventually, along with letters and more, accumulated in the book Beyond the Light Barrier. And she was very outspoken and all kinds of things, which for the time was quite unexpected for a woman in South Africa, at least. Um, and when she gave talks and things, they became so popular, if you will, that in fact things became completely booked out. That there was absolutely no um, lack of support from the public. Eventually, she got to a point where every 7th of April, she would return to Flying Saucer Hill. Indeed, and one occasion she befriended some helicopter pilots who sought shelter on her farm during a storm, and they helped her get up to the hill when the ride up on horseback became too difficult for her. Um, she died at the age of 84, as I say, leaving her last book unfinished. And before her death, she related to acquaintances that Ailing, like Akon, was now an astrophysicist crisscrossing the universe with his father and his spacewoman Clea and their son. Now, here's where the story takes a little bit of an interesting turn, because back in the day, I worked for a bookshop, not CNA, a different one. And the one day, while I was in the shop, she came in and she was promoting her book, Beyond the Light Barrier. And she came in with a boy that was apparently her son. And I never did discover if it was Ailing, the alien son, or not, but I think it was. And she wanted me, as I was managing the shop at the time, to sell the book in the shop. And we had a policy whereby we would take in some, and if we would try them out on a sale or return system. And if they did go, then we would get more. And if not, we'd give them back and say thanks very much, which is all very fair. So it is at this point that I met her. Now, as we are about to go on into the second part of the story, I do remind all of you, welcome, welcome. It's great to have you on board, but please like, share, subscribe, and get people involved with the channel so that we can keep it going. Certainly something that we rely on you for, so I will keep bringing you content if you can keep giving me likes and subscribings. So thank you for those who have. But now, as I say, she came in and told me this story. And she gave me her book, and I took, I think I took 5 of them to try, put them on the counter, a local author and all the rest of it. And I did read it because I was curious and I wanted to know what it was that I was supposedly selling. And I was very intrigued by this because I thought to myself, you know, an alien. And I will not lie to you, I was fairly young at the time. but I tried very hard to check out her sun to see if there was any specific alien features that I could see, but sadly, I will admit that he looked like a very normal individual. I was hoping for, I don't know, gills or a tail or something, but no such luck. But as I say, in the book, they give you the exact location of where the spaceship is supposed to land. And I was big into my hiking at the time, and I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to go and find this place. So the one day I packed up the car with some hiking gear and a suitable pack lunch, and I went out. And fortunately, when I was in the military years ago, part of my job, including being able to work with maps and navigation and such. So when I got the GPS locations, now nowadays it's GPS locations. Back in my day, there was no such thing for us mere mortals. We didn't have cell phones and all the rest of that. Yes, I am that old. Um, but I could work out on a map exactly where this place was. And I did. And I went on out and I parked at a suitable spot and hiked the rest of the way. And I made it up to the top of the hill. Now, one of the things that you need to know is that it's reasonably high in a very wet area. It is indeed very rocky, as described in the book itself, which I thought was interesting. But everything's covered with like this very low sort of plant or moss because of the dampness and how wet it always is up there. So this is important because if the actual bit where the ship was said to land is at the edge of a sort of point of this hill in a circle. Which I suppose it's a saucer, so you would expect a circular landing, which seems reasonable in that regard. Now, I had a pretty good compass that I was using. It was very reliable, and I've used the compass before and after. I've got it still, in fact, for a great many trips, and it works excellently. And this is important because when I arrived at the very, very top of the hill, there's a sort of circle of stones. And the reason you can see the circle is that outside the circle is all of this moss and these low, scrubby plant type things. But inside the circle, nothing grew at all. Plain rocky soil. And I would say the circle 10 to 15 feet across, if my memory serves me correct. And the really weird part is if I walked up to the circle and I stood right on the edge of it, and I tested this several times, my compass worked just perfectly. But the moment I passed the compass over the line where things no longer grew, at that point, the compass just spun. It did absolutely nothing inside that circle. Now, as I say, I could literally stand there holding the compass in my hand, pass it over the line, and it spun. Bring it back, and it stopped. Pass it over, and it spun. It was not gradual, so it wasn't like there was ferrous rocks or something, and as you get to the area, it stops working properly. No, no, this was literally a sharp line of where it stopped working. Nothing grew in that little spot where the ship was supposed to land, whatever it might be. And there was a weird feeling to the ground somehow, almost as if you could pick up on. Okay, imagine it like that. If you've ever been in a room where a huge amount of electricity is being generated, you can kind of feel it in the air. It's the greasiness in the air in a way. Same feeling. So yes, I went up and I saw the sight, and it was strange. I can tell you that yes, I met the son, who is apparently half alien, and I met her, and she was an intelligent woman. She was well spoken, quite old when I met her, of course, but nevertheless. So here's the big question: did she invent it all? Did she maybe have some kind of, I don't know, a mental dissociation or something like that? Um, or did it really happen? Um, my initial thought was at the time, come on, this kind of thing can't be real. I've changed my views on whether or not aliens might exist over the years. At the time, I was convinced that there was no way, but nevertheless, um, it seems that there was more to the story than met the eye, because for better or for worse, the place where she said the ship landed was very strange. And yes, I have no answers to it. So if anybody knows, give me a comment. Tell me what you think, because it was a very, very strange situation. Um, so perhaps, perhaps there was more to it than we really might know, or perhaps it was indeed nothing more than a load of rubbish. I can tell you that from the drawings that she had of the alleged alien Akon, he looked human-like. Um, so one would assume at least these peoples could uh, blend in with humanity quite easily. Apparently, they were very nice, um, and all of that, but vegetarian as well, if that makes any difference. Um, very much environmentally interested in bettering the world through that kind of thing. So, yeah, not really sure. Now, give your opinions on that, absolutely. Tell me what you think. Share, if you think it's utter rubbish, tell me. If you can give me an explanation for the strange circle where nothing grew and where compass didn't work, I'd love to hear it. As I say, I've still got that compass and it works just fine. I've tested against other compasses on more than one occasion, and it's perfectly good. But now, as we have gone over that, as I promised I would, we are now going to move on a little. Now, we've been talking mostly about UFOs. Now, UFOs, of course, are not quite the same as aliens. And we are going to have to talk about the aliens as well. So we are going to refer to both UFOs and aliens. Now, the UFOs, of course, are quite literally that, unidentified flying objects, or as they are properly called in the modern parlance, apparently, UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. But a UFO is a UFO, however you call it. What do they say? A rose is a rose by any name, and will smell as sweet. So, aliens and UFOs. Now, we've noted so far several varieties of UFO. And these, we assume at least, are the ships. We have found you get disc type ones. We also get cross-like ones. And it seems that it's possible that when you see a cross-shaped one, it's actually a disc-shaped one with its whatever it is sticking out. They appear to be either some kind of sensory equipment or possibly some kind of energy drawing equipment that extend to make the thing some kind of a cross. You also get spherical ones and triangular ones and cigar-shaped ones, which seem to be the motherships. And as one of the guys pointed out in the last live, perhaps the different ships are there as for different functions. Or the other option, of course, is that you get the different ships because there are different alien races. And on that note, and before we start our next topic, we are going to have to briefly talk about the types of aliens which may or may not be out there according to the varying stories. So we've spoken of the ships, but let's quickly talk about alien types. Now, as we know, there is a whole ton of aliens that you can get in accordance with science fiction and fantasy. And we are not interested in those, such as the xenomorphs and such, which are hugely popular. They are cool, but we are interested in the ones that come from so-called sightings or abductions. Now, the first category are humanoid aliens. So, aliens that share characteristics with humans such as upright posture, bipedalism, and facial features, such as that might matter. And in this selection, you have the first and most famous ones, of course, the Greys. They are usually smaller humanoids with grey skin and large dark eyes. So that's your first alien type. The second alien type are the Nordics. And it seems that Akon, the alien from the story, was one of these, as they're called Nordics because they are human-like, with fair hair and skin, and they're usually considered to be nice, but they can pass as ordinary humans very easily, which obviously the Greys cannot. The next variety are ones which are called the Anunnaki. Now, as we know, The Anunnaki are said to be a race of beings of some kind from Navajo culture that um, are said to live partly in this world and partly not. And they link up in descriptions, weirdly enough, with descriptions of some of the gods in ancient South American culture. I forget whether it's the Mayan or the Aztec, one of them. Nevertheless, and also with the descriptions of the Tuatha De Danann from Irish culture, which leads you to wonder if this might not be the explanation. Hey there, Lily. How are you? Welcome back. And then you get the tools. The tools are humanoids, but they are very much stretched out, taller than people quite often. And it seems that these ones are less than benevolent. And if bad things happen, it may very well be these guys. So the negative abductions seem to be those. There are, of course, also the reptilians, which are another set, if you will. And then you get a whole collection of non-humanoid aliens, which may or may not be important, dependent on, as it were, ones that seem to have characteristics that seem to imply they come from a way hotter place or a way colder place, or something in that regard, if that makes any sense. So we have a fair selection of ships and a fair selection of aliens. And for today's country and culture, as it were, I have decided that we are going to look at the sightings and encounters of California. As you know, we like to jump between different countries and cultures and try and get some quite different ones. Now, apparently, California is quite a serious hotspot for UFO sightings, officially recording the highest number of reported incidents in the United States. We do know that there is a very high population in California, which helps, but nevertheless, they have over 16,800 reported sightings. Southern California, in particular, has quite a history of UFO encounters, often around the military training zones and naval operations, which may give us some clue either that it's special military things being tested, or that the aliens are making sure we're not getting out of hand. Now, there are those that say that not only is Southern California quite the hotspot for UFOs, but there might actually be underwater bases there that the aliens use. Now, they have a national UFO reporting center that collects and analyzes UFO sightings, and government agencies like the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office also investigates these phenomenons. So they take it kind of serious, if that makes any difference. There is a huge public interest in UFOs and UAPs that has led to increased reporting and discussion on these events, which also might help a little bit with gathering of data, simply because, at least when I was growing up, If you said you had seen an alien, you probably would have been told that you were out of your tiny mind, and possibly even given some extra medications for the same. Cheers to you all. Nevertheless, as we go on with these strange things, welcome to the new ones who've joined. I do remind you to like, share, subscribe, as that what keep the channel going, and it is so easy to send a couple of likes and tap on the screen and give a comment. But nevertheless, let's begin with what has been seen. There was a UFO spotted over California that stayed there for 15 minutes on April 27th in 2025. An anonymous resident in 29 Palms followed a brightly lit hexagonal-shaped object that flew over the desert and videotaped it. So the video is out there for you to go and have a look at if you feel so moved. It appeared out of nowhere at around 10:30 in the evening, local time, while the witness was standing at an isolated cabin. According to the report, the witness submitted the video 2 days later to the National UFO Reporting Center. The suspected spacecraft was moving slowly and erratically, as if in a state of confusion. It appeared to move arbitrarily without any clear direction and at varying speeds, said the witness. A large object also appeared to pulse, emitting bright light from its edges as it moved I can't talk tonight. As it moved across the sky for about 15 minutes. It was brighter than a full moon, and it was not the moon, as it was noted that it was a night of a new moon, and the moon was seen separate to the disk-like light. So what stood out was the extraordinary lighting and the strange shape and irregular movements. As the witness followed it, he added that the strange object began to change shape, going between circular and hexagonal. The person who recorded the video on his phone was the only witness in the cabin at that night, which meant there were no others to confirm the event, but there was, of course, a video thereof. He claimed that he had not taken any type of perception or affecting substances at the time of observation and had clear vision throughout. They tried to find an explanation for the event, noting that the SpaceX rocket launch had taken place that day, but the Falcon 9 rocket had been launched from Florida 3 hours earlier, and it could not have been that. A previous rocket launch had created a similar phenomenon in Great Britain in March, but this one could not have. The strange shape, according to experts, was caused by the glowing frozen fuel being released from the SpaceX rocket, but as we say, the timing was all wrong for it. So this may be a bit of a cover-up. Or not. Maybe it was. The blue spiral is formed when excess fuel released from the rapidly spinning rocket rises, reflecting sunlight into the upper atmosphere, giving it an otherworldly glow before turning into water vapor. Ironically, this new sighting occurred just days before a hearing in the US Congress on UFOs. Make of it what you will. Speakers, including the Pentagon UFO project whistleblower Luis Elizondo, a former NASA administrator and a retired Navy admiral, called on the government to publish what it knows about these sightings. It also called for increased funding for the detection of UFOs and UAPs, which, according to some speakers, were being suppressed by the American intelligence community. It was pointed out that witnesses like the one at 29 Palms have no official central channel in the US to report their sightings to. And for this reason, many potential reports are never made or investigated by the military or federal authorities. I do love their acronyms for these varying things. Your NUFORC and MUFON, which are the two main organizations in America, but they are not affiliated with the government, and they do often share data with researchers, though, and other state institutions when important cases occur. So, does this matter? Does this not matter? I don't know. I sometimes wonder if people are serious or not, and should it be serious? I don't know. As I say, I may or may not have actually managed to encounter an alien myself, or it was complete rubbish. I'm not sure. So apparently in Southern California, though, there is a particular pattern to the encounters, and experts like Corbell link the Sycamore Knoll mystery to decades of consistent sighting in the Warning Area 291, a military training zone of Southern California. Events like the 2004 Nimitz Tic Tac encounter and the 2019 Navy warship swarm that occurred nearby suggests a long-term presence of unknown intelligence in the Southern California area. According to Navy Combat Information Center, the CIC, 4 unknown aerial objects were recently tracked on radar and observed performing synchronized physics-defying maneuvers before vanishing. This supports claims that these objects might operate from an underwater facility like Sycamore Knoll. Could Sycamore Knoll be humanity's closest encounter with an underwater extraterrestrial base? So now we need to know more about Sycamore Knoll, and we are going to touch on that as well. As the evidence mounts, the line between science fiction and reality gets thinner than ever. Now, we can say this. When the pilot, Kenneth Arnold, took off from Chehalis in Washington in his single-engine airplane one afternoon in 1947, he was looking for a lost military aircraft that had crashed. But what he found was something different, which has set off the whole obsession with aliens that persists today. While flying around Mount Rainier, Arnold reportedly encountered 9 curious wingless objects speeding through the sky at 1,200 miles an hour, faster than any plane at the time could go. He spent years afterwards trying to describe what he had seen, reportedly using a term that has been the key go-to ever since, that of the flying saucer. Since then, Americans have been quite fixated with the idea that aliens are somewhere above us. And not only them, to be fair. Um, and a survey in 2019 found that 33% of Americans believe that some UFOs are alien spacecraft, while 60% felt that they could all be explained by human activity. Um, 2 years later, though, in 2021, 41% said they believed in UFOs. And those that said not at all, they don't exist, had dropped to 50%. So it seems that um, it's quite important. And of course, as we know, there has been quite a lot of movies about aliens and space and more that have been uh, a big deal and have been very favorited all over the world, in fact. Um, we've got a lot of conspiracy theories that go around, of course, but UFO sightings in the US are very much concentrated in the West, partly because of the abundance of dark sky locations where it's easier to spot objects with less light pollution. Those who believe they've seen something otherworldly can, in fact, of course, report it to the National UFO Reporting Center, uh, NUFORC. And while New Mexico and Nevada are perhaps best known for UFO sightings, um, the state with the most is still California, 16,500 at least as of April 21st, 2025. Stacker compiled a ranking of cities with the most UFO sightings in California, though, using data from NUFORC. And it seems that there are certain places and certain patterns, if you will, that seem to indicate exactly which places you will see them. Santa Barbara is tied with Santa Rosa. Number 8 is Bakersfield. Number 7, Long Beach. Number 6, Fresno. 5, San Francisco. 4, San Jose. 3, Sacramento. 2, San Diego, with 586 sightings there alone. And number 1, which maybe is less surprising depending on how you view Los Angeles, but Los Angeles with 608 sightings. So there's quite a lot. Now, as we move along and look at that, we cannot not mention a very recent video. I'm sure that you are all familiar with it. It's been bouncing around TikTok quite a bit. And that's one which is the video that was posted of a Ring camera, which is in Southern California, which apparently captures an alien figure that, to me at least, looking at the video, it looks a bit like a grey, uh, that is walking across the yard. Um, could it have actually been some kind of creature like an alien, or was it no more than just foolishness? Hard to say, um, but absolutely in the video you see this funny little figure wander past. So it seems that there are definitely something going on. But what exactly? Well, the next story comes from Las Vegas. A Navy sailor who recounts an UFO sighting off the coast of California. Now, the witness to this particular phenomenon captured on camera from a U.S. warship off the coast of Southern California, finally is speaking about this close encounter with a craft that he says, and here's the bit that matters, emerged from the ocean. The video recorded by Navy sailors made headlines, and coincidentally, one of the witnesses of the unexplained event is from Las Vegas. This is the original so-called Tic Tac incident, which proved to be one of the most consequential UFO incidents of all time, which happened in 2004. It was first investigated by a secret program based in Las Vegas, managed by the Defense Intelligence Agency. And the new video is strikingly similar to the famed incident, but was documented by the crew of the USS Jackson in February 2023 in the same waters. So this is not the first time it's happened, and apparently the stories of both incidents match. So it's a commonality. In the most recent congressional hearing into the UAP, Rear Admiral Timothy Gallaudet, a retired U.S. Navy officer, encourages witnesses to step forward, and the senior chief operations specialist Alexandra Wiggins, a 23-year Navy veteran, did so. He heard the video of the new incident had been circulating and was put in contact with Jeremy Corbell. The filmmaker had first released a video of the latest incident on a podcast, and Weaponized Wiggins, as he was called, shared details about the encounter and his connection to Las Vegas, where he grew up. He says that I went to Cheyenne High School, and he had been watching the News Now reporter George Knapp's reporting since his hair was as dark as Wiggins. His family also served in the military, and his father worked security, yes, in that place that we must speak of, in Nevada, Area 51. So, let's see what he can say. So, this guy's dad was security in Area 51. Now, in February 2023, Wiggins was a senior chief and radar specialist on the USS Jackson, an air traffic controller for the Navy. His main job was identifying what might be in the air near the ship. He and others in the USS Jackson's Combat Information Center saw curious objects on their screens. And Wiggins, who wanted to get a better look at it, went out to take a view. To my surprise, he said, which is something I have never witnessed, was a light I noticed on the horizon. It looked as if it was surfacing out of the water and going up. He said that he jammed back to the Combat Center and took a closer look at the Sapphire system, which is a thermal sensor. The sensor detected not one but two tic-tac shaped objects. Neither showed any hint of exhaust or any known propulsion system. We only saw the one, and then after the second one, it was only then when we zoomed out that we realized there's two more, making it a total of four. Wiggins then said the four of them suddenly took off to the northeast simultaneously, 2 steps behind, instantaneous. So very quickly. So a tic-tac, I'm trying to decide if they mean it was a small ovoid type shape, or it looked like a sort of double-hatched cross. I think they mean a small ovoid. Why they can't explain things according to shapes and stuff as they are is an American thing. It's a tic-tac. I don't know. Strange to me. Now, they did do a checkup with what was or should have been in the area, and they said that there are no planes or helicopters that would explain the four objects, at least. So take that as said. Wiggins says that he's not a whistleblower, but he's a witness. The ship did not file any formal notice about the incidents because these tic tacs were not close enough to the ship and did not display any hostile intent. Wiggins served on the USS Omaha, one of 10 Navy warships buzzed by dozens of unidentified objects in the same area in 2019. Radar returns and thermal images document multiple large circular objects around the USS Omaha for over an hour. One of them disappeared into the sea. Wiggins says, I'm skeptical myself as to what I saw that day, and maybe I'll know what it was. But it seems at the moment there is no answer. And now we need to get a little bit more of an answer in terms of that other weird place that we mentioned. Let me run back and find where they mentioned it, because we need to know what it is. Where did it go? Because they said that it was not unlike that place, and we don't know what that place was, but it's something in the sea. So if it is something in the sea, then we need to know what in the sea it was, so that we can actually find out more. Sycamore Knoll. So let us discover what Sycamore Knoll actually is. So, and if my computer stops being a pain in the buttocks, possible underwater UFO base. Hard to say. But this is what they tell us about Sycamore Knoll, insofar as anything at all, because a lot of what is told in the research, at least that I pulled up before, is that no, it isn't. But then we expect that, don't we? So, the mysterious UFO base off Malibu that thereafter has vanished, at least from Google Earth. So, off the coast, there is something that has been stirring up the tinfoil hat community, according to the report I read, which I think is rather lovely, which is an underwater feature 6.6 miles offshore, which is said to be a UFO base. Now, according to what has been said, that's now disappeared. It's been wiped off Google Earth, at least. Whether or not you can go on out there and look at it, I'm not sure, because it's a long way from where I am. But it was discovered in 2014, an underwater structure off the coast of Malibu, California, about 2,000 feet below the surface of the Pacific Ocean. While known to scientists for years, it gained the attention recently where they said it was an alien base. However, as of April 2025, it's been blurred out. So why would Google need to blur out the location? Which has just made conspiracy theorists say even more so, it's a conspiracy. Yeah. Now, they say that there are coordinates to where it is. And for those of you who are interested, I will try at the very least to put it up. However, my darling computer does not love me and is currently whining at me, which is irritating as hell. So I'm going to have to do it the hard way. But I want you to have a chance to go and check out an alien base. So maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. But for what it's worth, let's see if we can throw the picture up. Dum, 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 dum. And it doesn't want to show properly. I really do need to figure out how to get these things to show better behind. I am not succeeding in that regard. And I think my massive ability at putting up videos in the ticking of talking is not sufficient in order to do that, despite nope, no luck. It doesn't give me a chance. But yes, go look it up. It's definitely out there. We have aliens off the coast, and see if for yourself that it is in fact a blurred out place. So lots of confusion about it. Now, as per an account reported to Newfork regarding the sighting at Sycamore Knoll, It's a massive cathedral-shaped structure, multiple pointed edges, all glowing brilliantly white, that uh, when the ship came down, it vanished into the ocean with no splash nor sound, just a flash and it was gone. Um, and they say that it was something going to the secret base below the water there. Um, Now, there's all sorts of long explanations as to what it really is and why it isn't aliens but nevertheless, I think it is one that we couldn't do California without mentioning at all because, come on, aliens. So, what might be down there? We don't know. We do know, however, that we need to talk further about specific aliens seen in California. Now, besides the greys and the tic tacs, you get the tall slenders, which are particularly seen around Mount Shasta. And the reason that that's important, such as it is because these aliens might be the dangerous kind, 7 foot tall, long and slender. Now, as we are about to go into this, I do remind you all, like, share, subscribe, do all the good things that help keep the channel going, please. But until then, we will speak on Mount Shasta. What is Mount Shasta noted for in this regard? So, for that, we must look at the tall and slenders a little bit more. Now, as we know, the greys, by and large, are considered to be pretty tame and not things you need worry about. But that's not true of all aliens. So there are quite a few legends around Mount Shasta, which includes Lemurians, whatever those peoples might be, lizard people, UFOs, and the tall slenders. The lenticular clouds that appear over the mountain may hide a Lemurian mothership. Others speak of a hidden city called Telos beneath the mountain, inhabited by advanced beings. Also, of course, we do know that there is a huge number of reported Bigfoot sightings in the area. So perhaps Bigfoots are connected to aliens. Now, the Lemurians are said to be a highly advanced civilization from the lost continent of Lemuria, which are believed to reside in a city of Telos beneath Mount Shasta. They are described as peaceful, gentle, and kind, and are there to help you expand your consciousness. The lizard people, however, are also underground beings that may be under Mount Shasta, and of course, as we know, they are the bad ones, and the ones which apparently run the governments around the world as well, at least according to many of the videos that I have seen thus far. There are all kinds of aliens reported around Mount Shasta, as well as a number of paranormal and cryptozoological things like Bigfoot, there are also apparently interdimensional beings which may or may not link to what we have in the past referred to as the jinn. So it seems that if you want the weird, the wonderful, and the strange, Mount Shasta's the place to go. Now, when it comes to ufology and close encounters and all the rest of these things, the most famous, which we will expand a little on to give us something, are the Greys, which apparently are Zeta Reticulans, whatever the hell that means, better known as the Roswell Greys, because those are the ones that happened to be encountered at Roswell. And we all know about Roswell. We will certainly speak of it in future. Generally described having small humanoid bodies, smooth grey skin, disproportionately large hairless heads, and large black almond-shaped eyes. In 1961, the Barney and Betty Hill abduction claim was key to the popularization of grey aliens. Precursor figures would have described things in terms of science fiction, I suppose, but later on the same descriptions turned up in the Roswell incident and early accounts of the Aztec UFO encounter. It's become something of a trope. So, well, whether or not this is now something that does exist or doesn't is very hard to tell because we have a lot of stories, as you can imagine. But they're supposed to be way more intelligent and advanced than us. They are associated with Zeta Reticuli, which is because of a map drawn by Betty Hill, a school teacher. Okay, they worded that in my notes terribly. Betty Hill drew a map which was interpreted by a school teacher called Marjorie Fish in 1969. Under hypnosis, Betty Hill claimed to have shown a map that displayed the star system of the aliens, and hearing this, Fish created a model from the drawing by Hill and eventually worked out that Zeta Reticuli, a binary star system, was where the alien greys come from. We do know that other people also claimed to meet up with the greys, varying people, including the famous Aleister Crowley, who claimed to have met something which apparently was a grey. And his description was that they have a cold computer-like intelligence beyond human comprehension. So what the Barney and Betty Hill abduction, which started it all, what exactly were they talking about? This is now something that does need to be explained. In 1961, humanoid alien beings with greyish skin abducted them and taken them to a flying saucer. In his article in 1990, Martin Kottemeyer suggests that Barney's memories revealed under hypnosis that he could have been influenced by a science fiction TV show, but, well, that was much later. We know, though, that they are the key ones. If you're talking aliens, they're the go-to world over now. And they are mentioned in a huge number of science fiction stories and more. They are the subject of many conspiracy theories. And some say that the Greys represent part of the government-led disinformation or plausible deniability campaign. And they're in fact the product of government mind control experiments, etc. It gets weirder and weirder the more you go along. However, in 1995, Ray Santilli claimed to have obtained reels of 16mm film that depicted the autopsy of a real grey that was recovered from the site of Roswell. Whether or not that was true has been argued back and forth. But it seems that a number of people said that this footage did exist, at least. It seems that the Greys, while I was under the impression they were fairly nice, that's not actually the case. Apparently, they get seriously involved in alien abductions, and 50% of the Australian abductions are Greys, 73% of the US ones, and 48% in continental Europe, and 12% in the United Kingdom. And there are distinct types of Greys that differ slightly in height as well. The abduction claims are described as being extremely traumatic, like an abduction or even a sexual assault might be, at the level of trauma and distress. And the emotional impact can be as great as combat or sexual abuse or other traumatic events of that kind. The eyes are often a focus of abduction claims, which often describe a grey staring into the eyes of the abductee while conducting mental procedures, which apparently induces a hallucinogenic state. Can we say more about them than that? Nah, there's all kinds of psychology trying to explain them away, which may or may not mean anything. There are those who say that actually these creatures were once human or something in that line from the future, time travel. Others say it's interdimensional travel. There's a lot of different attempts to explain the Greys away. But really and truly, I don't know if we can. In my experience, at least, people try very hard to explain things away just as much as people try to explain the existence of things. So, who do you believe? Very hard to say, and absolutely certainly we do need to get our hands on a bit more evidence. I, for one, would like to see that alleged Roswell autopsy footage. I did have a go at trying to find it, and I will have another go, but I was not so lucky in being able to get a hold of it. So maybe that means it is all a hoax. I don't know. Um, in terms of the lizard men type creature, I've seen numerous videos of them showing themselves briefly. The trouble that we have now is while we have got so much better at videoing things, we've also got so much better at faking videos, which means that now it's almost impossible to find a way to take a video of an alien and be certain that the video is real. It's far, far, far too easy to doctor things. So we've kind of gotten so technological that we shot ourselves in the foot in terms of this, which makes it very, very difficult. I don't know if we will ever find a way to prove them unless they rock up and walk down the high street going, "Hi, we're from Alpha Centauri, beep, beep." It's sort of a difficulty that it's not an easy answer to. Again, I do think that it is very unlikely that we have the world as big as it is, the universe as big as it is, and that there isn't some kind of other life out there. I recall seeing the most amazing National Geographic film on specialized undersea creatures. Now, we know that all creatures that exist on this planet are carbon-based, except actually that's not true. They discovered a kind of proto-creature near volcanic vents, I believe in the Mariana Trench or something in that general vicinity, which is a silica-based life form. It's a very primitive life form, but it is life, which implies that just because we are all carbon-based life forms, that's because it suits this planet. And therefore, it's eminently possible that on other planets, other kinds of life forms could exist. We don't know. There's a lot out there, and it's eminently possible that these different things could exist. But that's all I got for you tonight. In the next one, we are going to have another go at finding out more interesting UFOs and aliens in a different country. And I do hope you will join me again. We do it at 10 o'clock South African time. That's GMT plus 2. So I would love it if you guys came back and checked it out. And again, remember, support the channel, like, share, subscribe, and do all the things that make it possible for us to keep this going. And as always, I shall bid you good night. Sleep deep, sleep sweet, but sleep with one eye open, and maybe keep a holy object and possibly a baseball bat near to the bed just in case of aliens. Because remember, my friends, sometimes those things that go bump in the night might very possibly go bump for you.